Donald Trump in a new feud tonight, this one with the Navy SEAL commander who oversaw the mission to kill Osama bin Laden.
Bill McRaven, retired admiral, Navy SEAL, 37 years, former head of U.S. Special Operations.
Hillary Clinton fan.
Special Operations.
Excuse me, Hillary Clinton fan.
Who led the operations, commanded the operations that took down Saddam Hussein and that killed Osama bin Laden, says that your sentiment is the greatest threat to democracy in his lifetime.
He's a Hillary Clinton backer and an Obama backer. And frankly,
he was a Navy SEAL.
Wouldn't it have been nice if we got Osama bin Laden a lot sooner than that?
Admiral McRaven saying, though, that he did not support Hillary Clinton or anyone else in that 2016 election. He also mentions he's been a fan of both Presidents Bush and Obama, meaning that was another false attack to distract. Here's what is important. McRaven was actually reportedly on a potential VP list for Clinton, but he was also on Trump's list to be National Security Advisor. In other words, this is someone who seems widely sought after, which makes sense considering some of what he's done in service. Now, in the Fox interview, Trump also admits that he should have visited Arlington National Cemetery on Veterans Day. He said he hasn't visited troops in war zones because he's busy with, quote, phony witch hunts.
Why haven't you visited our troops serving in war zones in Iraq and Afghanistan in the 2 years you've been in office as Commander-in-Chief?
Well, I think you will see that happen. There are things that are being planned. We don't want to talk about it obviously because of security reasons and everything else, but there are things that are planned. I've had an unbelievable busy schedule, and I will be doing it. On top of which, you have these phony witch hunts, on top of which, I mean, we've just been very busy, but I will be doing that.
Retired Colonel Lawrence Wilkerson joins me now. He served as Powell's chief of staff at the State Department, also served 31 years in the U.S. Army. And he recently wrote that Trump has been treating the troops like, quote, toy soldiers and trying to manipulate a domestic midterm election outcome by sending them to the border. One more news item. Late today, we got a report that some of those troops may come home as early as this week. That's even before the so-called caravan that Trump said they were supposed to deal with even gets to the border. First of all, Colonel Wilkinson, thanks for making time for us tonight.
Sure, Ari.
When you look at what the president just said there, what stands out as important to you, and why do you think he feels the need to make false claims or lies about this veteran with regard to his political history when dealing with these military debates?
I think, as we said in the op-ed in the New York Times, Gordon Adams, Colonel Ike Wilson, and myself that appeared this morning in the online edition, that the political stunt that comprised sending the troops to the border was just that, a political stunt. We think that's dangerous, and I think the criticism of Admiral McRaven and other things like that are of a similar nature because this president does everything, or most things that I can ascertain with a reason, for his political domestic base. That's the reason he sent the troops to the border, to try and influence the midterms. And that's the reason I think he's now attacking Admiral McRaven, because McRaven made some very derisive comments about his policy towards the media, comments that maybe I don't agree with the degree of threat McRaven suggested, but I do agree that it'd be in the top 3 or 4 threats to our democracy right now, the destruction of the ability of the media to represent to the American people what its government is doing in their name and to give them the truth and the facts about the media. Trump has been an absolute enemy of the concept of our democracy. So, I mean, McRaven was the chancellor of the University of Texas. He was the head of Joint Special Operations Command. He is I don't know him personally, but for all intents and purposes, everything I've heard about him is he's of a high character, a high integrity. He didn't take political positions. He worked for the commander-in-chief he happened to serve at the time that the American people chose to put in the White House. He was an outstanding individual, is an outstanding individual. So for Trump to do this, again, it's a political stunt. The sad thing for Trump is that as he does more and more of these political stunts, he is carving away the fringes of his political domestic base. He is, in fact, committing suicide.
What does it do for something that we talk about in fairly grand terms when we study the American experiment? We talk about civil-military relations. What does it do for them and that bond we try to have where there's civilian control of the military, but there's also this great respect for the important, courageous, nonpartisan role of the military when the president acts this way.
It erodes that faith and that relationship. There's no question about it, as we say in the op-ed. When you do things that are strictly domestically oriented with the armed forces of the United States, like dispatch all these forces down to the border as a political stunt, then you are eroding that relationship. You're eating away at that relationship. And furthermore, when you put John Kelly, Jim Mattis, H.R. McMaster, and whomever else that Trump finds he likes rather than he detests, like Bill McRaven, when you do that, you are taking away from the civilian component of the governance of this country. That's dangerous. That's extremely dangerous. So he husbands the military who show fealty to him. He gives them important positions and jobs, and he spurns the military who happen to speak up in some way that's usually fairly powerful against his policies or against his person. This is not the way the commander-in-chief of this democracy should be treating the armed forces of the United States. And frankly, it's not the way the armed forces should be treating this commander-in-chief. So we've got a dangerous situation here. It's not a situation where they're going to march down Pennsylvania Avenue and take over the country. It's much more insidious than that. One has to go back and read James Madison and read some of his concern about the power for war, the power for manipulating the military being in the hands strictly of the executive. That's why the Congress put it in the Constitution in the hands of the Congress. But the Congress has abandoned its responsibility in that regard. Look at the war in Yemen right now. They've got two pieces of legislation over there. They could pass that legislation in accordance with the War Powers Act and the Constitution and get the United States out of that brutal war in Yemen, but they won't do it. They lack the courage. So the more they lack the courage, the more the president grows in power, the more the military associated with the president grows in power, and the more our republic is in peril.
Colonel Wilkerson, you lay it out very well on an important issue, and we speak on an evening where the news is breaking that they're drawing back the troops from the South, which sort of further confirms, as you and your colleagues write in that piece, what a political stunt it was and the political timing. I really thank you for giving us some of your expertise here on the beat.
Thank you, and I'm glad they're coming back, because a lot of these troops probably haven't had a Thanksgiving with their family for months, years.
Well, amen to that. Thank you again, Colonel.